SNOWBIRDS by Louis Shiner. Originally published in the November 1982 issue of Analog magazine, republished in two collections of the author's stories, 9 Hard Questions About the Nature of the Universe in 1990 and Collected Stories in 2009. Read by Darrell T. Smith II for my channel, Quasar Spectra. Snowbirds. She was still trying to make sense of what she'd learned when she looked up and found herself caught in a massive traffic jam. 1 minute she'd been moving down Central Expressway at nearly 40 miles an hour, and the next she was stopped, closed in by cars on all sides. I should have known better than to take Central, she thought, no matter how late it is. The ordinariness of it took her mind off her other problem for a moment, and for the first time she really noticed what was going on around her. It was cold, of course, bitterly cold, but the sky was clear blue in the last light of the sun. A voice on the radio was going on about the weather crisis, comparing the temperatures from April a year ago and reciting an endless stream of statistics. He had no answers, and Marge turned him off. Apparently, something more interesting was happening outside. A little girl in a red party dress was hanging halfway out of a car window, pointing at the sky and shouting something at her mother. Just ahead, another car door opened, and a man in jeans and a western hat got out to stare at the sky as well. What the hell is going on? Marge wondered, shifting into neutral and setting her brake. She rolled her window down, wincing as the icy wind hit her eyes, and craned her neck upward. She saw an old-fashioned biplane moving in broad loops and swirls directly overhead. Skywriting, she realized. She hadn't thought they did that anymore. "Beware," it said. The word gave her a chill. I don't like this, she thought. I don't like this weather, and I don't like being stuck here. The plane finished a second word. Invaders. People up and down the stalled expressway were getting out of their cars and standing in the roadway, collars turned against the wind, watching the sky. The plane started a new line with "from," then followed it with "the." Marge could smell the exhaust coming up through the floor. She turned her engine off and drummed her fingers on the dashboard. People were rubbing their arms now, nodding to each other, and getting back into their cars. Marge looked up to see the plane flying off, leaving the completed message behind it. Beware, invaders from the future. Probably, she thought, a publicity stunt for some stupid science fiction movie. But the explanation didn't convince her, and she wanted very badly to be home, nestled in the couch with a drink in her hand. It was another 15 minutes before traffic was moving again. 2 of the 3 lanes were stalled, and as Marge finally began to inch forward, she could see the reason. Nearly a dozen cars were sitting motionless in their lanes as the rest of the traffic wound slowly around them. Accidents? She wondered. Out of gas? Then she realized that several of the cars were still running, with thin plumes of smoke trickling from their exhausts. There were no piles of broken glass, no raised hoods, no dented bumpers. The cars were simply deserted. On his 4th try, he got hold of her. He'd been calling every 15 minutes since 6 o'clock, telling himself he wasn't worried, but still vastly relieved when she answered the phone. "Have you been calling?" Marge asked. "A couple of times." "There was a humongous traffic jam on Central. Listen, you want to have dinner or something? I thought that might be nice. Why don't you just come over? We can do something here." "Fine," Louis said. She sounded distracted, but at least she wanted to see him. "I'll be right over." Before he left the apartment, he turned off the gas space heater and stood in front of it for a second or so, soaking up the last of its heat with his outstretched hands. About the time of his second call to Marge's apartment, he'd felt something hit him, a feeling of uneasiness so strong that it had almost nauseated him. Even now that he knew she was all right, the feeling was still there, a knot of tension in his stomach. He put on his overcoat and went down to his car. Marge answered the door in a terry cloth robe, her hair wrapped in a towel. "Why don't you get us some drinks?" she said. "Jesus, what a day!" Louis went to the kitchen for the whiskey while she disappeared into the bedroom. By the time he had the drinks made, she had put on some jeans and a sweater and had sprawled back in her reclining chair. She wanted to be left alone, Louis knew, or she would have been sitting on the couch. He set her drink next to her hand and took a chair across from her. "So, tell me about it," he said. "I don't know if I want to. It sounds crazy." "Try me." "Well, the bank has been having me run credit checks, mostly on snowbirds like you." "Snowbirds?" Northerners, the ones who keep moving down here because of the supposedly better weather." She stopped to take a long drink. "God, I needed that. So anyway, this morning I had a whole batch of them to process, and suddenly I notice, hey, there's only about 4 or 5 different banks listed as credit references for these guys." Louis's stomach clenched hard enough to bring a taste of bile to his throat. He set his drink down on the coffee table. "So far, all I've been doing is just pulling in a bunch of reports off the data net. I mean, there's not really a problem or anything. All the credit ratings are fine. But this business with the banks is bothering me. So I call one of the banks, one that just got on the net in the last 3 years or so, where I know they've still got some old handwritten records down in the basement. And there weren't any written files to back up the stuff on the net. Not for any of the people I was calling about. Maybe they got rid of the old files? No way. So I went to the boss with this, and he just told me to drop it. He said if the net said their credit was good, that was all he cared about. That sounds reasonable to me. Is it? What if somebody is ripping off the net? Shouldn't I, try to do something about it? "Hey," Louis said, "relax. If you keep pushing this, all you're going to do is force them to fire you. You know how they are." "Yeah, maybe," she conceded. "You want to eat?" A fist of nausea hit him. He blinked, and for a fraction of a second the apartment was gone. He had a fleeting impression of desolation, of rolling yellow-gray clouds and a smell like burning gasoline. Then he was back on Marge's couch, gasping for breath. "Louis, are you all right?" Marge was out of her chair, coming over to him. "You look like you're about to faint." "I'm okay," he said thickly. "Fine. Must have had something bad for lunch." "You want to throw up?" "No, don't think I could. I feel okay now." The couch was solid under his hand again, and he ran inventory on his body. No pains, no tingling in the extremities. Not a heart attack, then, or a stroke. Then what was it? His mind was screaming. What the hell just happened to me? He lay awake that night, long after Marge had curled into sleep. The episode, whatever it was, hadn't repeated itself, and he'd finally been able to choke down some dinner, but it had left a precarious, off-balance sort of feeling behind, and now he was afraid to go to sleep. They hadn't made love. Marge cared for him, he knew, but there didn't seem to be much of a physical aspect to that caring. I must seem old to her, he thought, though he knew 49 was barely even middle age. He was a little out of shape, picking up a bit of a paunch, going gray at the sides and thin on top. But then, at 28, Marge was a bit hard-looking from her years of dieting, her voice and her temper both a little brittle. Nothing that special about either one of us, he told himself. Each of us hanging on because there's nothing else to do. It was just the weather that had him down, he told himself. The weather and the heartburn, or whatever it had been. He moved closer to Marge's warmth and eventually fell asleep. Marge coasted through the morning from habit, her mind blurred by lack of sleep. Something dark and formless had been lurking in all her dreams, and she had kept waking up frightened and out of breath, unable to get back to sleep for as long as an hour at a time. Outside the office, it was gray and bitterly cold, with more snow threatened by afternoon. April blizzards bring May. What? She wondered. She was about to break for lunch when the phone rang, jarring her nerves so badly that she banged her knee against the underside of the desk. She snatched it up, took a breath, and said, "Hello? Marge? This is Kathy at First Bank in Albany. I talked to you yesterday. Well, listen, I did some calling around here on my own, and you know those files we couldn't find? Well, I decided to try and run down some of the addresses that were listed on the data net to see if maybe we'd screwed up somewhere." "Yes?" Marge said, rubbing her knees absently. "Well, we didn't. None of the real estate agents listed have ever heard of those people. They aren't in any of the old phone books. It's like they never existed at all." "That's weird," Marge said. "Isn't it? I think it's kind of exciting. I bet it's the mafia or something, you know? What do you think?" "I don't know what to think." She stopped rubbing her knee and leaned back in her chair. "I wish I did." "I'm going to keep looking around," Kathy said. "If I find anything else, I'll let you know." "Okay," Marge said. "But listen, be careful, will you?" "Sure," she said. "Gotta go. Bye." Marge put down the phone. "So," she thought, "somebody is tampering with the net." It had happened before, of course. They caught one or two people at it every year, usually siphoning money off into a numbered account somewhere. But this was different. Who was doing it? Who were these people with no pasts? Where were they coming from? From the future, her mind answered her. Beware. She shook her head. Whoa, she thought. Don't start going off the deep end. But what if the skywriting hadn't been a publicity stunt? What if somebody else had gotten onto the same thing she had? She started to get up and go to lunch, and then sat down again. A couple of phone calls. It couldn't hurt to try that much. She picked an aircraft charter company out of the yellow pages, and they gave her the names of 2 companies that did skywriting in the Dallas area. She called the first one and got a tired female voice on the line. "Yes," the woman said, "we did it. No, I can't tell you what it means. We just did a job, you know. We don't ask any questions about what we write, long as it's not dirty or political." Marge panicked and dropped her flimsy cover story. "Look, this is really important. I have to talk to whoever paid you to do that message. It's important. It's life or death." The tone of the woman's voice changed. "Then maybe you better talk to the police, hon." "What? If it's life or death, you're too late. The guy that paid for that ad was killed last night, and the cops have been hanging around here all day. Maybe you better give me your name?" Marge put the phone back in the cradle. Suppose, she thought, just suppose that it all ties together. Suppose everything ties together. The thought terrified her, but she reached for her video terminal anyway, and with trembling fingers typed in the name of the program that accessed the data net. Enter Social Security number. She had seen Lewis's number one day and memorized it, cursing herself as a nasty, prying bitch all the while. "Let me be wrong," she thought, as she typed the number in and pressed the new line key. Lewis's name appeared on the screen, and the program asked her if it was correct. She hit the plus bar, and the screen winked out, then displayed 15 lines of information. It was all there. First Bank of Albany, the lists of realtors, employers, and credit cards. He was one of them. Lewis's phone rang at 4:17. "Hello? Lewis?" "That's right." The voice began to recite a short poem of nonsense syllables. Lewis wanted to hang up, but he felt oddly compelled to listen. Then the voice stopped, and the world melted away. It was like the night before, but stronger, violently nauseating. He dropped to his knees, still clutching the phone. "Are you still there, Louis?" "Yes," he gasped. "Do you know who you are now?" "Yes, Then you know what you have to do." There was a silence, then the buzz of a dial tone. When she got home, Louis was waiting for her. He sat in an armchair holding a .22 target pistol. The barrel was lined up with her stomach, and Marge felt a sick, scared bravado come over her. "So it's real," she said. "Yes, I didn't know myself until this afternoon. Then somebody called and said some kind of code that brought my memories back. And told you to kill me because now I know too much? I'm supposed to do that, yes." He was pale and sweating, and there was a sheen of terror in his eyes, but otherwise he hadn't changed. He was the same ordinary man she'd slept with and felt sorry for and wished she could fall in love with but hadn't been able to. "Are you going to? Kill me?" It surprised her that she could say it so easily. "No," he said. He looked down at the gun as if he didn't know where it had come from. "I don't think it matters much anymore. It's not worth it." He tossed the gun onto the sofa. "You shouldn't throw guns around," Marge said, wanting to scream with relief. "It's dangerous." "Dangerous," he said. "We're being sucked back, you know, one at a time. The strain is too much." "What strain? Back where? Am I supposed to have this all figured out or something?" She sat down heavily on the couch. "I don't know what's going on." The gun was next to her, but she didn't pick it up, instead letting her head drop slowly to rest on her knees. "We come from about 100 years from now. A lot of us, I guess. Something around 100,000 of us. We picked this time because it was the earliest when the net was in operation, so we wouldn't have to waste a lot of time building cover stories. And there's still another lifetime or so before things get bad." "Bad?" "Where we come from, there's no energy left. No heat, no cars. The winters kept getting worse, and then the climate just shifted. 100 years from now, most of North America is under about 6 to 100 feet of snow, and the glaciers are moving south. You think you can imagine it? Try to imagine not being able to bathe because there's no clean water. And if there was water, you wouldn't be able to heat it, and even if you could, there wouldn't be any place warm enough to use it. Am I supposed to feel sorry for you now? No, it doesn't make any difference. I've held on this long, but I haven't got much time left. Maybe an hour or two. And then? It's hard to explain. It's like inertia, sort of. If you don't change anything, it's not too hard to stay here. But the more improbable your being here becomes, the more likely you'll just snap back. And when people find out what you really are, or even suspect, that makes it worse, right?" He nodded. Marge remembered the deserted cars on Central Expressway. The message in the sky had done that to them, driven them back. "And the weather?" she asked. "Is that your fault, too?" "Yes, it's kind of ironic. The disturbance we made coming back here loused up your own climate. You know, people used to blame the migrating birds for bringing cold weather with them when they flew south. What was it you called us? Snowbirds?" He stood up. "I'm going now. I can't fight it off much longer. I don't want to be here when it happens." "Louis." She got to her feet, reaching for his sleeve. He stopped. "You're not even going to remember me, you know. It may take you a day or so, but people who don't really know me, they'll forget right away." She felt bitter, used, betrayed. "Go on," she said. "Get out of here." The door closed quietly after him, and she heard the sound of his car leaving the driveway. "I won't forget," she said to the wall. He pulled into the street, pains dancing up and down his rib cage. "God damn it!" he wanted to shout. "God damn it to hell!" The road in front of him and the houses to either side were flickering like badly framed film in a projector. The car was running smoothly enough, but his stomach felt as if it were on a tilt-a-whirl. On a lawn ahead, he saw a set of abandoned metal furniture, left out through the long winter and the endless freezing spring. Lawn furniture, he thought. Sweet Jesus! He didn't want to go back. Damn that man and his skywriting. Damn Marge and her nosiness. Damn them all to a cold and airless hell. He wrenched the wheel, and the car shot over the curb, cutting muddy tracks through the damp yellow grass, crashing into the metal table and chairs. Something tore loose under the car as he drove over them, but he just pushed harder on the accelerator. He ran down a mailbox and clipped a white picket fence, then wrestled the car back onto the street, his anger spent. The car coasted to a stop, and he leaned back, not resisting anymore, letting himself fall into the yawning darkness. Wanting lights and crowds and loud colors, Marge drove through the light snow to North Park. She wandered around the mall and finally stopped to rest at the fountain outside Neiman's, watching 3 7-year-old boys sliding on the tile sculpture. "Hey!" she shouted to them. "Come here a minute." They stopped and stared at her. "It's okay," she told them. "I just want to show you something." One of them, a little older looking than the other two, sauntered over. "You want to see something neat?" she asked him. "See that man over there?" She pointed to a middle-aged man who reminded her of Louis. Louis what? What was his last name? Well-dressed, bundled in an overcoat and scarf. "Go up to him and ask him something for me, okay?" "Ask him what?" "Ask him, are you from the future? Then see what happens." "You're crazy." "You think so? Try it." The boy laughed and ran away. She watched him telling his friends what she'd said, saw them arguing back and forth. Then, after a minute or so, the smallest of them went timidly up to the man in the overcoat. Marge found herself holding her breath. The boy tugged at the man's trouser leg, and the man bent over to listen. The boy pointed back to Marge and asked him something, and for a moment the man's eyes seemed to glow with a fierce hostility. Marge blinked. Hadn't that little boy just been talking to an older man? She shook her head. "I've been working too hard," she thought. "I need to forget all this nonsense I've been worrying about." What nonsense? And get some rest. As she got up, 3 little boys, laughing wildly, ran past her, asking a question of everyone they ran into. Marge pushed open the heavy glass door of the mall and stepped into a warm April mist. You've been listening to pre-1990s speculative fiction readings with a highlight on science fiction by Darrell T. Smith II. Please consider clicking the donation link in the description box. Thank you so much for your time and your imagination.